It was just past noon at JFK International Airport, and everything looked exactly as it should. Rolling suitcases bumped along the tile floor, voices echoed through the high-ceilinged terminal, and gate announcements buzzed over the intercom. The usual chaos, controlled by routine. Officer Miguel Ramirez adjusted his cap and walked calmly through Terminal 4 with Rex, his trusted canine partner. Rex, a 5-year-old Belgian Malinois with sharp eyes and an even sharper nose, had been part of the airport's elite detection unit for 3 years. Together, they'd sniffed out hidden narcotics, flagged suspicious packages, and helped keep thousands of passengers safe. To most travelers, they were just another patrol team. But Rex had a reputation among handlers for never making mistakes. The duo was completing their second sweep of the day when Rex's demeanor suddenly shifted. Without warning, the dog stopped. His body tensed, ears pointed forward. His nose hovered just inches from the ground. Officer Ramirez followed Rex's gaze and noticed a large black suitcase parked awkwardly against the edge of baggage carousel 6, unclaimed and unnoticed. Rex growled, a deep, low sound that Officer Ramirez had only heard twice before. Both times had led to serious discoveries. "Easy, boy," Ramirez murmured, but Rex took a step forward and placed a paw on the suitcase. Then another. And then, to the officer's surprise, he started to bite at the side of the case. Not aggressively, but insistently, as if to say this one. That was Rex's signal. He wasn't guessing. He was sure. Passengers nearby began to glance over, their curiosity piqued by the dog's sudden change in behavior. One man pulled out his phone and started filming. Another stepped back cautiously. Officer Ramirez radioed the control room immediately. "Possible alert, Carousel 6, K9 response. Unattended baggage," he reported, keeping his voice steady. Within seconds, the response protocol was activated. Nearby officers began cordoning off the area while maintaining calm. The goal was to avoid panic, but move people back just in case. Rex, still focused on the suitcase, didn't bark again. He just stood beside it, rigid, alert, and waiting. Ramirez knew this was serious. His partner didn't false alarm. Not once. He gave Rex a gentle pat. "Good boy. We've got this." As officers moved in, one question echoed silently through the minds of everyone watching. What on earth was inside that suitcase? Whatever it was, Rex had already decided. It didn't belong there. The hum of the terminal faded into a low murmur as tension slowly thickened in the air. The black suitcase hadn't moved, but Rex refused to look away. His entire body was coiled like a spring, muscles taut, nose twitching with purpose. Officer Ramirez knew that posture. Something inside that suitcase didn't sit right with his partner. Airport security personnel arrived in under a minute, their expressions shifting from routine professionalism to focused urgency. Ramirez waved them over. "He's fixed on it," he said, keeping his eyes on Rex. No hesitation. A second K9 unit arrived shortly after. A Labrador named Shadow, led by Officer Green. Protocol required confirmation by another trained dog before escalating to bomb squad intervention. Shadow was friendly and eager, but the moment she approached the suitcase, her playful demeanor vanished. She stopped short, sniffed twice, and sat firmly beside it, a trained alert for contraband or danger. That was all the confirmation they needed. Clear the perimeter. Now, one of the senior officers ordered. A growing crowd of travelers had gathered behind the security tape, some filming, others whispering. Children peered from behind parents, sensing the seriousness of the moment. TSA agents calmly guided passengers away from the carousel as officers moved to form a tight perimeter around the suspect bag. Ramirez clipped Rex's leash back on, guiding him to a safe distance while keeping him within sight. Rex resisted at first, reluctant to leave the bag, but eventually obeyed. He didn't bark. He didn't lunge. But his eyes stayed locked on the suitcase like it owed him an answer. "I've never seen him react like that," Ramirez said quietly to a nearby officer. It's like he knew it was important before we even got close. Within 10 minutes, the airport's bomb squad arrived wearing padded vests and helmets. The team brought in a remote-controlled robot, a small wheeled device equipped with cameras, sensors, and an extendable arm. It rolled toward the suitcase while agents watched the screen feed from behind a mobile shield. All operations near Carousel 6 were suspended. Incoming luggage was rerouted. Travelers were redirected to a different terminal. The airport, always alive with motion, now held its breath. The robot's claw gently tapped the suitcase, checking for movement. No sound, no reaction, just silence and the steady blink of indicator lights. Rex sat beside Ramirez, tail still, gaze unblinking. Whatever was inside that suitcase, it had captured more than a dog's attention. It had stopped an airport cold. The blinking lights from the robot cast eerie reflections on the polished airport floor. Behind the reinforced glass panel, the bomb squad officers watched the screen intently. Every small movement of the robot was controlled with precision. The metal claw extended slowly and nudged the suitcase again. Still no sound, no shifting. But the tension didn't ease. From the other side of the security line, curious eyes followed every second of the action. Passengers gripped phones, whispering theories. Some thought it was a bomb. Others guessed drugs or cash. One teenager whispered to his dad, "What if it's something alive?" Back at the command post, Officer Ramirez stood with his arms crossed, Rex sitting obediently at his side. But the dog wasn't relaxed, not even close. His eyes remained locked on the suitcase. His ears were upright, and his breathing shallow. He hadn't broken focus since the moment he'd made the alert. I've seen dogs react to explosives, narcotics, even meat smuggled from overseas, said Officer Green, glancing at Ramirez. But this is different. Ramirez nodded. Rex has only reacted this strongly twice before. Both times, we found things we weren't prepared for. Inside the suitcase, if it wasn't an explosive device, it had to be something equally alarming. That realization struck the team harder than expected. Whatever was sealed inside had triggered a response from not one, but two highly trained canines. After careful inspection, the bomb squad confirmed that no obvious explosives were detected. The suitcase, while suspicious in contents, didn't pose an immediate detonation threat. That meant it could be manually opened, but only with extreme caution. By now, senior airport officials had arrived. Cameras from local news stations were being set up just outside the secure area. A supervisor gave a short press briefing, carefully choosing every word to avoid panic. We're currently investigating a suspicious piece of luggage that triggered a canine alert. There is no current threat to public safety, and we appreciate everyone's cooperation as we follow standard procedure. Inside the terminal, officers in gloves and masks prepared to unzip the suitcase. The lead investigator gave a firm nod. One officer grasped the handle slowly, tugging the zipper around the corners with practiced control. The zipper's slow rasp echoed louder than it should have. A layer of dark clothing filled the top, packed tightly. Then came a smell, unfamiliar and unnatural. Faint, but present. Rex stiffened again. And in that moment, everyone knew. Whatever was hidden beneath those clothes wasn't just luggage. The officer pulled back the top layer of clothes, his gloved hands moving with a mix of precision and hesitation. It wasn't the usual mess of vacation gear. Everything inside the suitcase was folded with unnatural care. Too neat, too deliberate. Beneath the first layer, they found a thick plastic liner, the kind used for insulation or concealment. "Stop," the lead investigator said sharply. "Check for wires." Another officer stepped forward with a handheld scanner, sweeping it over the lining. No signals, no circuits, no electronics, just the strange smell that was growing stronger. Earthy, damp, and oddly sterile. Permission was given to continue. They sliced open the liner with a utility knife, exposing a set of tightly packed plastic containers, each one no larger than a shoebox. The containers were taped shut, air holes punched into their tops. The moment they were uncovered, a subtle noise escaped, like a rustle. Something was moving. The officers exchanged a glance. One of them slowly lifted a container and held it toward the light. Inside, barely visible, was a pair of wide, blinking eyes. A lizard. Not the kind you'd find in someone's backyard. This one was exotic, brightly colored, and motionless from sedation. A reptile specialist later identified it as a rare gecko species native to Southeast Asia, critically endangered and protected under international wildlife law. As the rest of the suitcase was unpacked, more animals appeared. Birds with brilliant feathers barely visible through the mesh of their boxes. Tiny turtles with unique patterns. Even a sedated sugar glider curled tightly in a cotton pouch. Some animals were barely moving. Others were silent, hidden beneath layers of fabric to muffle any sound. There were at least 20 creatures inside, all carefully concealed in an attempt to smuggle them across borders. It wasn't just illegal, it was cruel. The heat, the sedation, the cramped containers. Some of the animals wouldn't have survived another few hours. One officer turned away, shaking his head in disbelief. "I've worked this job 15 years, he muttered. "Seen drugs, guns, you name it. But this is next level." Officer Ramirez crouched next to Rex and gave him a long look. "You knew," he whispered. "You knew it wasn't just a suitcase." News of the discovery spread fast through the terminal. Shock turned to outrage. What was supposed to be a regular day had now revealed something far more disturbing. A suitcase not packed with clothes, but with stolen life. And the man who brought it in was still out there. As the last container was carefully removed from the suitcase, the terminal that had once buzzed with impatient travelers now buzzed with disbelief. A portable enclosure was set up by animal control, who had been rushed to the scene. Vets checked each rescued creature, whispering grim assessments. Dehydration, sedation, oxygen loss. Some of the animals were days, maybe hours, from dying. But the operation didn't stop there. Now came the bigger question: who brought this suitcase through one of the most secure airports in the country? And why was it abandoned? Surveillance footage became the priority. Within the hour, security teams reviewed high-resolution video from the baggage claim area. There, in grainy color, a man in a gray hoodie and baseball cap could be seen wheeling the black suitcase off Flight 782, a direct flight from Bangkok. He moved with casual ease, scanning the crowd. But something shifted. Midway through the terminal, he abruptly changed direction and walked away from the suitcase, leaving it near Carousel 6. He disappeared into the crowd moments later. Officers zoomed in on his face, not clear enough for instant identification, but clear enough to start facial recognition. Customs pulled the flight manifest and cross-checked it with passport photos. One name stood out: a 32-year-old man with dual citizenship and a flight history of suspicious import activity. He'd made 3 trips in the last 5 months to wildlife-heavy regions in Southeast Asia. "Looks like we've caught a mule," said Agent Petal from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, now looped into the case. "Smugglers pay couriers to transport these animals. They train them how to pack, how to keep the animals quiet, and most importantly, how to abandon the suitcase if anything goes wrong." The motive was clear: money. Rare and endangered animals can fetch thousands of dollars on the black market, especially among private collectors who care little for legality. But getting them past customs, that required nerves of steel or the willingness to cut and run. Interpol was contacted. A red notice was filed to track the suspect internationally. Wildlife trafficking was not just an environmental issue. It was a global criminal industry, ranking just behind drugs and weapons in terms of profit. And this suitcase, it was evidence of a much larger network. Meanwhile, back at the airport, Rex remained calm beside Officer Ramirez, unaware that his alert had sparked an investigation that now spanned 3 continents. And authorities had only just begun to unravel the scale of the operation. By morning, the airport had returned to its usual rhythm, But behind the scenes, the investigation was moving at full speed. Federal agents, customs officers, and international liaisons were now working together from a secured operations room just above Terminal 4. The black suitcase, now carefully preserved in evidence, was only the beginning. Interpol's red notice had already triggered alerts in several partner countries. Within hours, it was confirmed that the man seen abandoning the suitcase was spotted 2 days earlier entering Thailand with an empty backpack and returning with 2 checked bags, one of which was never scanned at security due to a ground crew error. That oversight had now become a central focus of the investigation. A warrant was issued for the suspect's last known address in Queens, New York. When agents arrived, the apartment was vacant. No furniture, no trace of residency. But the building's manager revealed he'd rented the place under a fake name and had stayed less than a week. Security footage from the building's hallway showed him loading boxes into a rental van the night before his flight. The plates on that van were traced to a shell company known for leasing vehicles to anonymous clients, a trick often used in smuggling operations. Clearly, this wasn't the man's first time. At a wildlife rescue center outside the city, veterinarians continued their work around the clock. Several of the animals had stabilized, though a few remained in critical condition. Specialists identify them as species protected under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, CITES. Their illegal transport carried not just national penalties, but international ones. Meanwhile, social media had exploded with the story. Clips of Rex at the scene had gone viral. A photo of him sitting alertly in front of the suitcase racked up millions of likes within hours. People from around the world praised the dog's instincts and questioned how such trafficking was still happening in modern airports. But Officer Ramirez wasn't thinking about fame. He was thinking about the suitcase, about how close they'd come to missing it entirely. If Rex hadn't caught the scent, he told a reporter, those animals would have been handed off, disappeared, and probably never seen again. This was no accident. It was a pipeline. The manhunt continued. Leads were pouring in. Customs believed this arrest could expose an entire ring of smugglers, collectors, and corrupt handlers. And it had all begun with a dog's growl in an airport terminal. By the end of the week, Rex had become more than just a working dog. He had become a national sensation. His photo was everywhere. Sitting tall beside the black suitcase, eyes sharp, posture firm. News anchors called him the airport guardian, and children sent drawings of him to the local police precinct. One morning, Officer Ramirez arrived to find 2 bouquets of flowers and a bag of treats left anonymously by the precinct gate, all addressed to Rex. A formal press conference was scheduled by the NYPD and airport security. Cameras flashed as Officer Ramirez walked onto the podium with Rex at his side, both in uniform. The crowd of journalists and onlookers applauded the moment they appeared. A senior airport official stepped forward and smiled. Today, we honor one of our own, a K-9 officer whose training, instincts, and unwavering focus prevented a terrible crime and saved dozens of endangered animals. Rex, you are a hero. A shiny medal engraved with a paw print and badge number was clipped gently onto Rex's harness. His tail wagged modestly, not fully aware of the moment, but content beside Ramirez, who knelt down and whispered, "Good boy." The applause was long and heartfelt, but recognition didn't stop there. The city mayor issued a proclamation naming the date as Rex the K-9 Day, encouraging schools to learn about the importance of wildlife conservation and animal trafficking. Animal welfare organizations launched educational campaigns inspired by the case, using Rex's story to bring attention to the illegal wildlife trade. Rex didn't care about the cameras or the titles. After the ceremony, he was most excited about the new chew toy presented to him by a young girl from a local elementary school. Officer Ramirez laughed as Rex proudly paraded it around the precinct like it was a trophy. Despite the attention, Rex returned to duty just a few days later. Ramirez knew the dog needed structure. He thrived on focus and routine. Still, things felt different. People in the terminal now smiled as they passed by. Officers gave Rex an extra pat. Even travelers stopped to say thank you. "He's just doing his job," Ramirez would say with a shrug. But yeah, he's something special. While the investigation continued and arrests loomed on the horizon, one truth was already clear. Rex had changed the course of a global smuggling case with one moment of instinct. And for that, the world took notice. 3 weeks after the suitcase was discovered, the final pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Interpol agents, working in tandem with U.S. and Thai authorities, tracked the smuggling network to a villa on the outskirts of Bangkok. Hidden behind high walls and the front of a luxury pet export business, the property was anything but innocent. Inside, they found dozens more animals: parrots, snakes, lizards, and even rare monkeys, many in poor health, caged and tagged for illegal transport. Paper trails revealed client lists from Europe, North America, and the Middle East, with encrypted messages referencing secret drop points, airport codes, and bribed officials. The operation had been active for years, laundering animals as ornamental goods or scientific samples. And now, thanks to a dog at JFK, the entire ring was unraveling. Back in New York, federal prosecutors prepared charges against the man who had abandoned the suitcase. He had been captured 2 days prior in Mexico, attempting to board a private charter using a false identity. Extradition was already underway. He faced multiple counts of smuggling, conspiracy, and wildlife trafficking, crimes that carried decades of prison time under U.S. and international law. "This case sets a precedent," said Agent Patel in a televised interview. "Smuggling endangered species is not just unethical. It's illegal, and we will pursue it across every border." The animals rescued from the suitcase, now dubbed the JFK-20, had been safely relocated to certified sanctuaries and rescue centers. Specialists continued their work to rehabilitate them, with hopes that some could one day return to their natural habitats. For now, they were safe and alive, because one dog didn't ignore his instincts. Officer Ramirez took Rex to a quiet park near their precinct the day the last arrest was confirmed. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, and Rex chased a ball across the grass with pure joy. No cameras, no applause, just freedom. "You did it," Ramirez said quietly, watching his partner roll in the grass. "You really did it." For Rex, it had never been about medals or headlines. It was about the job, the duty, the quiet moment when his nose told him something wasn't right, and he listened. And now, because he did, the smuggling network was broken, the animals were free, and the world, at least for a moment, had been reminded of the silent heroes who walk among us, on 4 legs, with a badge, and a nose that never lies.